Ashley, thank you so much for joining me on Ignite Your Spark. I'm so excited to have you here.
Oh, you are. I'm so grateful. And, when someone reaches out to you to ask you to be on a podcast, when you are usually the interviewer, it's a whole different ball game and just an amazing opportunity for you. And I appreciate you reaching out because you just never know when you're behind the mic if anyone's listening. And for you to do that to me, I know you understand and relate. So thank you.
I totally do. I was like, oh, she's not going to get back to me. There's no way. She interviews the coolest people, that I aspire to. And I was just delighted because you always say that on your podcast. Just reach out to me. I'll get back to you. And I'm like, yeah, well, we'll see. Right away, you got back to me.
Yay.
I am,
That's so important to me.
oh, it's great. It's really great. And I want to start off by asking what I always ask all my guests, and is how do you ignite your spark, Ashley?
Oh, I would probably the first thing that comes to my mind is my morning routine is my ignite my spark moment. I know you've listened to me talk about my breath work every morning now. I do that beats and breath, and I do my automatic writing. I do my walk with my dogs. And it's like I've raised my girls in this way that how important it is to ignite your spark in the morning. And I always say, be the thermostat in the world. Don't be the one that tries to climb up to get there. Don't be the thermometer, be the thermostat, like set the temperature. So when I think of igniting my spark, it's so important to ignite it first thing in the morning by doing your whatever it is that you do that raises your vibration, brings you to the place of this present moment. Walking in nature with my dogs is like a total ignite my spark moment. I just layer those moments.
Yeah, yeah. Well, nature is critical. I can't start my day without being outside.
Yes, me too.
Every single place I've ever lived, even in Manhattan and in San Francisco, had an outdoor area, had outdoor access. I need that. I don't feel my day starts unless I can breathe in some fresh air, even if it's raining, just a quick little fresh air moment and then back.
Right. Well, I grew up in Seattle, so there was not much. And so it really, when I moved to San Diego and realized there was sunshine and, blue skies, and I thought, wow, people wake up to that. So that does, I think when I even know the contrast, I really appreciate the being outside because it wasn't a welcoming thing up north.
Yeah. Well, some of us need that and some of us don't. I have a niece who is a detective in Seattle, and she went to the University of Washington, and she went from the Bay Area because she just loved the cold and mist. And we thought that perhaps she belonged in the Twilight series.
Oh, yes. That's not for me. No.
Either. All right. You got to the place where you are. You're a transformational coach and you work a lot with teens. And I love how you really care about this next generation and yourself included. I really want to encourage everyone to listen to your podcast, Uncover Your Magic. It is brilliant. And your first episode talks about your story. So we won't go into your story completely, but it is interesting. And Ashley, you started your podcast before the pandemic or during?
Right before. Didn't know it was going to come. It was so amazing. I talk about this a lot about listening to that voice and just saying yes. And in 2020, I was sitting watching. It was just kind of like, oh, a lot of people in China are dying. Nothing was happening, right? It wasn't in my mind at all. And I was watching this woman who was doing a master class on how to do a podcast. And I had been listening to her podcast and I thought, I want to do that. So I sign up. The next morning, Richard's like, you have no time to do that. You have an eighth grader and a fifth grader, and you barely have time to wash and dry the clothes and fold them, right? Do the laundry. And I thought, oh my gosh, he's right. But I'm not going to, now I have to prove it to him. Right? Like, you can't tell me no. So that it was like the next 2 days went by. I didn't have a laptop. So I was thinking when the girls come home from school, I'll have to borrow their laptop to figure out. I mean, I'm not technical at all. So 2 days later, I'm still in my mind's fog. We hadn't started the class. We get a call from their school. You need to come pick up your kids. We're going to be in quarantine for 2 weeks. So I thought that's why I heard that message. That's why I said yes. And now I'm going to have all the time in the world. And I even have a laptop at home now because the girls will be doing their schoolwork in their rooms. So yeah, I just know in that, especially in that story, and probably a lot of parts of my life where I've said yes in moments like that, where I've listened to my intuition and have just moved forward and picked up the breadcrumbs. That's when the magic is where the magic comes, because the fear, the what ifs, it's like, gosh, yeah, what if I did this podcast? And what if I kept doing it and loved it so much? And what if I met the most amazing people along the journey? And what if I grew so much? And what if I created a program for kids? Because at that time, people were listening to the podcast and asking me to help their kids. I'm like, help your kids? Like, what are you talking about? But I had done a few solo episodes at the beginning that were just because parenting is my thing. Like that's where I was focused. So they felt they heard that. And all of a sudden I had probably 10 kids, a few of them in my dining room table, teaching them what I taught my girls their whole life. And then some people listening from the podcast in Florida and Chicago. And I'm doing these Zoom calls, just making it up because I knew what I was so intentional as a parent. So when I say, like, when you pick the breadcrumbs up, there's so much power in that and you get the momentum going. And then I just see just like the snowball, rolling down the hill. It's just like, you just go, and it's so fun to see where it goes. And that's the magic.
Yeah. Well, I am a big believer in magic and in listening to your intuition. And I think what you're saying is really valuable to my listeners because I am always encouraging people to say yes, because I've studied improv for many years. And that's the first rule, say yes. And I also encourage people to step outside of their comfort zone and then to listen to the still small voice inside, which I learned as a young child that was my God. That was where God resided. Whatever you believe in, we
Mhm.
all have that intuition. And I love how throughout your life you followed those nudges. Again, reflecting back on your first podcast episode, I'm not sure I can remember everything, but the ways that you just sort of picked yourself up and you listened to your inner voice. Well, this isn't right. No, that's not right. And sometimes you didn't. And when you didn't, like you had a first husband and you knew that wasn't right, but you did it anyway. And there were growth moments in there. And I'm sure there were many reasons that you have discovered why. And then you
Right.
fabulous man. I mean, your stories are great. They're really great. And I am curious though, how do you think you developed that incredible sense of resilience and ability to listen to that intuition?
I think, first of all, I think it's something that is innate in me. I have that, like this, people would always say, you make a decision so quick, if it's about like a paint color or, going to the store and picking out. I said, because I have this knowing, it's a knowing, and I know that knowing. But, in my life, when I look back and think of the times where, like with that marriage where I knew it was wrong, but, it's like I look back and like I did need, that was a growth moment. It definitely opened up my mind where I needed to learn how to pick myself up and do my own thing and figure out my power and know that I can do, like, open my day spa. It catapulted me into this, like, I understood my power. But when I, like, as a mom, teaching these my children throughout their life and their childhood and now as teenagers, you when you watch them, get stuck, or, and I always say, like, what is it, what are you feeling? Like, what is speaking to you? And when you can really tune into that voice and listen and just trust it and just go, and just say yes, go back to saying yes. But it's that trust and that knowing, and it's having that awareness of that there is that. It's it could be loud, it could be, quiet, but you could just sit there and know that it's coming, and you know that, yes, I hear you.
And I think some people are more adept at listening to their own inner voice more so than others. And I also make decisions very, very quickly. And I just know. And people will say, well, how do you know? And I'll just say, have you ever walked into a room and you see someone there who sucks the energy out of a room? I mean, everybody can feel that. That's that psychic vampire. And what I say to people is, do you want to be that person, or do you want to be the person to whom people congregate? Do you want to be the firefly? And that's just my way of tuning in to, I can read a room. When I go in there, I'm like, oh, energy sucker right there. And I think everybody can do that. That's an easy way that I guide people, is to go into a room and see where your energy is led or where you're taken. Now, you've interviewed I mean, brilliant people, really, and brilliant interviews, because you're amazing.
Oh, thank you.
And this is going to be a tough one, because people ask me this question all the time. Who's your favorite? What have you learned the most? I'm not going to say that, but I want to say, is there one person that you can think of? And many, I would say, of your guests have sparked something within me. But is there one person who maybe flipped the switch for you, whether it was on automatic writing or accessing your intuition? Is there one person that really helped you turn a corner?
That's funny because I just interviewed Franco Romero. And I would say, because I just interviewed him, and because I've done this rabbit hole, that he's been right now the catalyst, like where I'm going in my awakening journey. We could only do a part one because he was late, and we're going to do a part two. So there was just so much in that 50 minutes of the interview. I could have gone for 2 more hours because there's so much in him. But going back to that question, I feel like I've grown so much through each person, and I could tell you every takeaway from, you'd mentioned Sarah Grace. There's even just reading her book before I had her on, I was so engrossed into her story, and what she, learning how to do that psychic surgery, and how everyone's taught me something. But when I'm saying the last person I've interviewed was Franco, and he's not even on the podcast yet. Um, he's, he's taken me from if I was here before I met him, like step number 3, I got to 10 in my awakening, understanding the way he explained it. So I guess that's my answer.
Can't wait to hear that. So let's talk a little bit about how you got into the arena of self-development. I have heard your story and I've heard, your podcast, but I would love people to know, because it wasn't as if you had a near-death experience. I've interviewed a lot of those people, but you gradually came into it, is what it appears.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yes.
via that one seminar you took through that job, that
Yes.
I
The
can't
PSI. Yes.
what that is, but
Right.
it took you on that journey and you haven't stopped. Do you think that was the pivotal moment, going through a seminar, that awakened you to more of your purpose or your gifts?
Yeah, that definitely was a moment in my life for sure. But when I go back to hearing from friends that I went to high school with or I grew up with, they'd always say, "Oh, Ashley, you'd always, tell me to write affirmations, and you'd always tell me." I said, "I did," or you would always bring like sayings. At that time we didn't have any kind of computers, or people that you could get anything off the internet. So I would buy cards that had these cute like sayings, or like Louise Hay things. I was drawn to those kind of things. But not, yes, when you say it was a gradual thing, that when I left my Montana 1-year marriage experience, and just I just set it my life, like, I'm just going to figure this out by myself. And then, I know now, when I look from my higher perspective, that the job that I found back in San Diego was definitely in my soul contract or, for a reason, because I met these women, and then that company required us to take this class. And then I took the class and I was like, what the heck? Like, this is what life is like. But I mean, I used to follow Abraham Hicks and, do all the numerology. And I was always into like going to the spiritual bookstores. And every time I'd go to Barnes and Noble, it would be, all the spirituality sections. And I have so many books back from that time. When I look back, I go, wow, I've always been a seeker, and I feel like now when I look at my life now, I'm like, this makes so much sense. Like, this is exactly what really was building to get to what I get to do now when my kids are ready. One's going to go to college, and, I'm at the end of Presley's childhood. So I feel so in alignment with that growth. And yes, as a gradual, and this just the same as this podcast, it's been such a gradual. I mean, you go to the beginning and it's like, I didn't know who I was going to interview. I didn't know who was going to listen. I didn't know how I was going to get, email people. Who are you? Who am I going to ask? Because there was no clarity. I just knew I wanted to do it. There was something in me. But as long as I kept going and picking up the breadcrumbs, the clarity just started getting clearer and clearer. And I'm like, okay, I'm drawn to that person. And then that would open up a can of worms. And then I'd be like down that, then that would be where I'm going, and it's so fun to now at this stage of the game, it's so fun I always am like, who's calling me, and when I listen to something, is it calling me? And it's just, and I know it's calling me, like with, Franco. He had called me like a year ago, like called me meaning spiritually, right? Not on the phone. Um, and I just didn't understand it until now when I interviewed him a few days ago, that it's always in divine timing when you're ready for that person that comes into your life, and you get to go down their rabbit hole and learn what you're supposed to learn at that time. And that's what I feel like it's been with every guest. I mean, you probably relate in
Oh,
your journey.
absolutely. Although I don't know that my memory is as good as yours, because thinking back to when I started in 2020, I'm like, who did I interview? I can't remember. I really can't. I have Obviously, I'm just assuming that I've absorbed some of the lessons, and there are certain things. And one of my favorite things, not that I don't want to talk about me, but uh, an author who wrote a book called Wizard of Oz for Your Soul. I was interviewing him. It's a cool book. He finds all these lessons in the Wizard of Oz.
Oh yeah.
I love it. And he said something, because he's older than me, and I'm a pro-aging advocate. I'm like, let's get rid of the term anti-aging. I mean, like, come on, we're gonna age. So we don't have to say this is an anti-aging product. Just I don't know, bothers me. But anyway, he said he can't stand it when he's in a room of people his age and they start with the organ recital, meaning, oh, well, this hurts and that hurts and the knee. And I have taken that, because I don't like that either. But I love to say that don't give me the organ recital, because you are focusing on the negative. So let's just like
Right.
step aside to that. But that's just an aside. What I really don't want to focus on that, but focus on the fact that I'm here as an inspiration to people. And do you have a way that you could tell my listeners how you listen to your intuition? I mean, there are a lot of people who are probably thinking, oh, yeah, well, that's all great. She did thus and such. But how do I start listening to my intuition? And well, I don't know if I trust myself. I think that's a big thing, is not trusting yourself. Do you have something you can share that you do? I mean, you just have always listened, and
Right.
as have I. And I know it's a challenge for some of us in that type A sort of ADD category, which is myself. And yet I still listen. I feel I could listen more. But what do you tell your children?
Yeah, I was going to say it would have to be that. And my client, these girls this one, she's probably 12 or 13, and I was teaching. There's a week in one of my classes that teaches intuition, and it's like, are you going to pick this or this, right? Like giving them that, and then they pick it. And I said, it's just like it's like proving that your intuition is, you gotta, there's something in your brain or your soul, whatever it is, it's there, but people can't recognize it unless you understand what it's doing. Like when you come to uh, if you're going to pick a greeting card, right? And you're trying to between the two, right? And what is drawing you? You're drawn more to, like, that's showing you like, okay, I'm more drawn to that one. Well, that's your intuition saying that's the one. But it's so easy when you understand it, but when you're not trained to know that you have that. So with the girls, like when I'll say to them, even with picking friends, right? Like what does it feel like? Like when you're with her, does it feel good? Is it a yes? Is it that's your intuition. Like, you got to listen to that. If that group of girls doesn't resonate with your soul, which is your intuition, your being, that is telling you no. I mean, you could go to the place where you don't feel good when you're around someone, and that's your intuition saying this isn't working. This person isn't the right person to align. We don't align. Our energies don't align. And it's always about, especially in teenage years especially with my clients that, struggle with friends or bullies and it's always saying, okay, well, when you have that intuition, when you feel that, that uneasy feeling with someone, that's your intuition. It's telling you that's not in alignment with you. That's not your energy. It's like, it's always like, as I explain it, like a magnet, like you'll feel that feeling when when your intuition is saying, yes, that's it. You'll know, you know, and when I'm good and I feel like I'm good at that. So when I try to explain that to these kids growing up and how important it is to know to know you have that, it's a internal GPS system, right? It's like you put your address and where you're going to go in the car and it's going to lead you. It's like it's leading you. You're being led and just trust it.
Do you find that these young people are more willing? Are they more absorbent? Because as I know, and I know that you also know from the people we've interviewed, that the world is changing. The vibration is really raising, and that this new crop of people, as it were, are really the ones who are going to lead us into the 2030s and beyond when this new golden age will occur. Do you feel that? Because I know that whether or not you work with other people, I know you say you're a transformational coach as well. Do you work with adults who are already sort of set in their ways? And is it different? Is it harder for us, not me, but some people than it is for the teens? Or do they give you any pushback?
That's such a great question. With these kids that I see, they've been programmed. They're on a hamster wheel, right? It's just the hamster wheel is going to keep going and going until someone puts that stick in there and stops the wheel. And when I'm working with someone, and these girls or boys too, and we're probably like week 2 or week 3 in, and they start to go, it's almost like I've peeled the onion to where they realize they're remembering who they really are, and they get excited, and now they're like lit up. And then their moms are saying, whatever's going on in that class with Ashley, our whole house is different. We used to go to the 4 corners of our house, and now we're all like, there's a different energy because so and so is learning, like doing all these things. But when I have the parents or adults that don't even have kids that I've worked with, and they're the limiting beliefs that hamster wheel is so strong. It's, and it's interesting because when they've recited the same words in over and over in their head, I know I'm the word police, because if you can't say anything really negative, because you're going to be creating your own reality through that. And I'm super sensitive about that. But with adults, yes, it is such a different game. It is such a different onion to peel. There's like cement. It's a very hard to peel that. But once you do and they understand and, it's just the way they're raised, that's just all they know, most people do that. I mean, I would say 99.99% live their life like that. It's very rare to find an awakened parent that has, kept their child awake, really, like hasn't, put the blinders on them. It is very rare.
Yeah.
And, where we're coming and where we're going. And, I see my, Paige going into college and interesting to, you see the fruit of your labor at this stage of parenting and where she's going to, direct her thinking and what she's going to do, her choices that she's going to make. And, but for the most part, I feel like uh, when I'm trying to explain to parents what the importance of creating these mindset tools or all the things that the gratitude practice, um, the learning their values, reading the 4 agreements, like just do that. Like, start doing, I mean, and get on the train and then watch your child just flirt, like start to believe they can do anything, believe that they are so powerful. When we do one of the weeks we do vision boards, and I've done it with a whole family before. Their whole family signed up for this class, and it was so interesting having a dad. And they were getting ready for a divorce, and it was like their last ditch effort. We're gonna do Ashley's class. And they had never listened to, any kind of Abraham Hicks. It was very Catholic, going to church like 3 or 4 times a week. But they never, I would send videos like on YouTube for Wayne Dyer, and they'd get on a call with me and they're like, wow, like I didn't even know that existed. I didn't even know that. And talk about lighting me up when I can do that for an adult and they start to kind of understand like, oh, there's more to this life that I haven't seen for 50 years, like there's just, it thrills me to not only awaken the children back up, but to see the parents realize that how important that is. And really, like, we're all going there. It's just, do you want to come now or do you want to wait, die and like do it another time?
I think it seems like more people are willing to uncover their magic,
Yes.
the go along into the roaring 20s in particular. And I love that the families got together and did a vision board. Did the marriage work? I just have,
Yes, it did.
oh my gosh, I have chills.
Yeah, it was amazing.
That is amazing. And I love that they were so open to it. And I assume that when your children are open to something, that perhaps you might explore more. I mean, in my case, I was the woo woo one. And I did not, my kids are young adults in their 30s. So I did not raise them the way I'm going to say I wish I had, but it doesn't matter because they turned out
Right.
regardless.
Yep.
I think of the way you're raising your kids, and I'm like, oh, that is so beautiful. These kids have such self confidence and self esteem. And I know they're probably going through regular teenage,
Right.
and that's it. But at least you've given them the tools to
Right.
access for when they're being bullied or to not bully or whatever it is. And that's beautiful. And I do feel that you and I are some of the people right now who are meant to bring the light, whether it is inner light or knowledge, to some of the people who may not understand this. I know a lot of my friends who do listen. Thank you, friends, who are not quite on board with me, but they're listen. And I know that gradually people will come to understand what we know, not that we are the experts. I don't mean it that way. And if they don't, they don't. It's like you said, you can either get to it now or you can get to it later or in the next life, is what I think. But
Right. It's funny when you were saying that about friends listening. I started my in-person retreats, here in San Diego, and it's been so amazing. And, that was one of the things that spoke to me one day, and I put it out there and it just like the ball started rolling, right? But I've reached out to friends that probably wouldn't listen to anybody that I interview, right? To come to this retreat, right? And so it's happened a few times in the last 4 retreats. I've had, one or two friends that would be like, oh, I've never done this before. What is breath work? Or, what's this, woo woo stuff. And, it's just that alone watching that. And then they get it done and they're like, wow, I could do that next weekend. I really enjoyed that. It's just, they don't know that is out there. That's not in their any kind of vicinity of what they even associate with. And when you don't have that community, or desire or drive to find out, right? To like search like we do, they don't know any better. And once they're like, whoa, I'm like, I love to see you uncover your magic. And I get to do it in person, right? So yeah, it's just, and I think, yeah, I just feel like sometimes when people are, I don't know who's listens to my podcast. I think of like the girls went to this little small Christian school, and I'm thinking, I sometimes see, the teachers had seen my story. They're probably like, oh, wow, what's that lady doing now? Who knows, but I really don't care.
It's your calling. This is your life. You followed the breadcrumbs. You are doing what you are meant to do. You are helping other people uncover our magic every single episode. And I really can't speak highly enough of your podcast and the way you interview and your guests. I just love it. And I know that's weird to be promoting someone's podcast on my own. You know what? It is. We are here to support one another. I don't
Yes.
people who tear each other down and are in competition because there's enough of everything for everyone.
Yeah.
And I know that in my heart. I also want to say, though, that you did not have a childhood which, said, you've got to do this, that, and the other. It appears that when I was listening to your podcast, you said your mother took you and your sister to these seminars when you were young teenagers and dropped you off. And
No, that was the other one that you're listening to. That
oh,
was Michelle.
okay, sorry. Well, how did you
So
raised in a Christian home that was very strict in belief, or was it open?
no, it was it was open. And my mom was raised Christian Science. So, like her mom passed away when I was 2, don't they believe in healing, and healers would come to the house. I would remember that. And, my mom's never been vaccinated. She never went to doctors. So, it was always mind over matter. She'd always, do our prayers, that kind of thing. And I remember being little, we would go to the Christian Science church little Sunday school. But yeah, I wouldn't say I was the oldest of 3 sisters, and I kind of was the mom. So I had to really, and I look back and I know now, like, okay, I chose my mom. I understand, that alone gave me so much independence and strength and power because I had to figure that out. But no, it wasn't a church. It wasn't a Catholic. Yeah, I married Richard, who was Catholic, and I was like, I'm not Catholic, and I'm just not. So I was already on a spiritual journey when I met him. So, but yeah, when my mom and dad got married twice and got divorced twice, yeah, it wasn't
Different.
it wasn't like it was a fun house. I mean, my mom was always, found the games to play, that was, I'm so grateful, like we had those fun childhoods where we were outside playing and making games and, playing theater and making dances up and selling tickets to the neighbors. We just had such a fun childhood in that way. But yeah, it was like little prayers, but we weren't like strictly, no, that wasn't a strict church religions type family.
Your mom's still alive, right?
Yes, yes.
How does she feel about this path that you've taken?
Very proud of, she's so sweet. She'll watch the YouTube videos and she'll say, oh, I really liked so and so, or, oh, you always talk about because my dad passed away, and, he'll come to me in my writing and she's like, you always talk about your dad. You don't ever talk about me. Um, but yeah, and I think for her, like, I feel like it's been such a great, she was a flight attendant for Alaska until 2020. She's 81 right now. So she would have probably still been flying if it wasn't for COVID, because she was just like a go-getter. But she reads my books. I'll bring her books, and but I feel that when she watches, and she likes to watch the YouTube. Um, she'll like to tell me like what she liked about the person or what she learned. And a lot of it goes over her head, I'm sure. And then she won't bring it up. It's kind of the same with Richard. He'll listen to it every week. And I know he's listening, but it's so funny because maybe sometimes he'll bring something up, but I think it's a way for me to communicate what I'm learning in that way. So, because he's not, we're all growing at different levels, and we have the most amazing marriage. I don't judge or look at where level he's at, but I feel like the podcast has kind of made him grow in his way. Be curious. To different things. He used to say, "You have a lot of medians on." And I'm like, "Honey, it's a medium." And I'm like, he goes, "Why are you doing that?" I said, "Because it's there. If they call me, they call me. I mean, if I'm being called," and it was so funny. I'm like, "It's a medium."
So funny. Well, I have to applaud Richard because my husband doesn't listen to my podcast. He knows how woo I am, though. I mean, he's known from the beginning. I
Right.
will see a psychic or a medical medium or whatever it is. And he's like, okay, well, you go see those people. Let's just see the regular doctors too.
Right.
But I love that. Oh my gosh, Ashley, thank you for being so generous with your time with me today. Before we say goodbye to all my sparklers, do you have any magical words you'd like to say to anyone out there listening to
Oh,
their magic?
it's just when you say ignite your spark and how important that is, and, living in that high vibration all the time and having that, being the difference, like going to the grocery store and being that person, being the person that changes the energy. I'm always been that with my girls, like go somewhere and give 5 compliments wherever you go. I don't care. They'd always say, well, no one says it back. But, be that person, be the person that that comes into the room and they say, wow, what has she done today? And to focus on your spark, and that's really like, that's going to start if you start to do the little things in the morning to start igniting your spark, you will see that there's so much magic in this world. And it will just keep going. And it's like you see, the energy radiating out of your body. It just will get bigger and bigger, like this. And that's really why we're here. And then it's contagious. And if you're not, like, the girls would have never in their life, and they would say, if they were here listening, they would say, yes, Mom, you're right, have never, ever woken up in the morning without a happy mother that's completely authentic and real, because she's ignited her spark before they woke up, ever. They would be like, if I was asleep or in a bad mood, they'd be like, what in the heck? I am that is so important to me. But I love ignite. Now I'm going to talk about it. You got to ignite your spark, girls.
That's beautiful. Our messages are so aligned. And I was thinking as you were saying that, I believe I tried to model that as well. And I just hope that everyone listening takes that to heart. And whether or not you have children who still live at home, or you have a partner or a spouse, wouldn't it be nice to just wake up and not complain about your lack of sleep or complain about your joints, but just be happy and grateful? I'm a big gratitude girl every single day. And I encourage everyone else to do that. Just be grateful for the fact that you woke up. And if you look in the mirror, make sure you smile.
Yeah.
Something to smile about. It's
Yes.
there. But well, I thank you so much, Ashley, for sharing your magic with my sparklers, as I like to call my listeners,
I
because
love that.
we will combust together. And it's, as you were just saying to me, that Marianne Williamson quote, which I will, of course, butcher, but when you shine your light, you give others permission to shine
Yes.
your light. And when you uncover your magic, you give others permission to uncover their magic. The world is beautiful. There are amazing souls like you out there who are shining your light. And I really thank you for shining. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for shining and reaching out to me. It makes my whole heart feel so, so good.
Oh, it's so fun to be on the other side of the mic sometimes.
Yes, it is fun.
There. This was not a have to on my case, though. I loved it. All right. Well, Sparkling family, thanks for tuning in. And please go find Ashley. Ashley, well, your website is Ashley, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, Gonor.
Honor. Uh-huh.
And then Uncover Your Magic podcast wherever you listen. I will put that all in the show notes because you must listen to our podcast. It's just a must. Follow those breadcrumbs. Okay. I'll follow the sparkling lights. That's it.
There you go.
Shine, everyone. Shine on, everyone. Until next week. Bye.